So today I'm going to show you how to do a corsage. I went to college and did level 4 NVQ a long time ago, and I think there they probably taught sort of the basics of a traditional corsage. I used to hate doing wiring, really hated it. Couldn't get things balanced, found them really difficult to hold in my fingers. So it can be a battle sometimes. And I think my theory is that you, as a florist, I think you develop techniques that work for you, that hold, that do the job. They might not necessarily be correct, but I think if it works and it's what the customer wants, then, you know, who's to complain? Some people might not like that attitude, I don't know, but stuff to them. So I've got some ranunculus. Don't worry, I'm not putting this Lisianthus with it as well. I'm just using the tops of the Lizzie. And I've also got some mimosa, which is beautiful, some buried eucalyptus, and also going to use the leaves from the eucalyptus as well. I mean, traditionally in the UK you would do ivy leaves, and you would create the shape with the ivy leaf and then start layering up. I mean, I think with styles now, that kind of bunched up look of I've just gone into a meadow and picked some flowers and put them on my suit jacket is very much on trend, as they say. But I will start as we mean to go. So ranunculus, lovely and cheerful, nice spring sort of colour. My wiring technique is to politely shove it up its bum, this wire. The ranunculus, the stem is kind of hollow, so you can see my fingers, I'm sort of twisting it up, and I want to hit you can feel it go, there we go, it's gone through this point here. I'm not going to go any further, but it's just going to hold it in place. So a thickish wire, and then I've got rose wire, which I'm just going to pop in there, sort of a couple of millimetres in, twist, and round we go. So that's all the wiring I would do for that. I'm going to do, I think I'll do 2 just so I can show you again. These are quite closed. I think ranunculus, some people sort of are terrified of them opening and being too floppy, but I think I've always found with ranunculus is as long as you surround them with foliage, then they seem to hold up just fine. So thick wire going up its stem, hitting that point there. It's probably about here again. Rose wire in, just a couple of millimetres, tuck it in, and then twist. You can kind of see. Now, I've done taping for, I don't know, 16 years, and it's second nature to me. This is something I think that just takes practice, unfortunately. It just takes time. And if you're not used to using this gutter tape, just get a piece and a thick wire. My old boss, one of my first floristry jobs, my terrifying Dutch boss, she would make me practice to get this taping really thin and really neat. So hold it with your left hand, stretch with your right, because this stuff is really stretchy, and just start twisting. And I'm pulling with my right hand as you go. You can kind of see it's got really thin there. And you just want the tape to be really neat and thin. Okay, you can't really tell much difference, but it is covered with the tape. That's what you want. So that's 16 years worth of experience right there. So I've taught many people how to do this kind of stuff. Don't worry if it doesn't come first time, it's just practice. So to tape again, I hold with my left hand, get it started, and then it starts sticking to itself. So you're twisting with your left, turning with your right, twisting with your left, okay? And you can just break it by pulling. And that's a taped ranunculus. I'll show you again. So holding it with my left hand. It does feel really weird, I promise. It'll feel strange, but it's just literally just practice. So twist. You don't want to grip the flower because ranunculus actually is quite a soft stem, so you could probably mash it quite easily. And you don't need to cover. People ask how much of the wire do I cover. You're not going to see any of this really, so you just want the top section taped. So it's quite straightforward. Right, I'll show you with the Lisianthus buds. So you kind of want the bigger buds. That one's broken, unfortunately. I used to work with a florist who, because corsages is something you make on the day of the wedding, she would be going through the bin, finding bits, cut off foliage and stuff to make the corsage. She made the most beautiful corsages, but she would literally raid the bins. But it worked. So, sorry, I'm talking and then not showing you. So Lisianthus bud, probably, what's that, useless with measurements, it's like 1.5 inches long, rose wire just literally tucked in so it stays, and then I'm twisting round so you can see that. I'll show you again. So with corsages you're probably thinking, I don't know, this is, I guess technically would this be called your focal flower? This is your main flower that you're going to use. Then you want smaller bits to add interest. So tucking it in, poking it in, twist and round, and this last little one. And this, I mean, I think doing these, it's you know, Saturday morning, it's early, sort of 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, and you just sat, I stick a podcast on, and I just work through all the wiring that I have to do, so buttonholes, corsages, wrist corsages, flower crowns, all that kind of stuff. It's quite therapeutic, you sort of switch your brain off, which is nice. Tape for these, again, so holding it, be careful with these because they are quite brittle, so starting with your left, pull with your right, stretch, and always be stretching with your right hand. And then break it off. So starting with your left hand, stretch, pull it off. Starting with your left hand, stretch. And I think the one thing that I really struggle with is that thing of, am I doing it properly? Does this look good enough? And I struggle with that, you know, been a florist for what, 16, 17 years. But I think that it's having confidence in your own work. Once you feel confident that that corsage is going to hold up, you know, through the day, then that's okay. I think other people do things the other way, that's all right. I think everyone is different. I mean, you only need to look at Instagram to see how different people's styles are. There's always that fear of, am I doing it right? I think it's a load of nonsense if you ask me. Right, bits of foliage. So the tip of, I love the top of the mimosa, it's quite delicate. So I would just do a hairpin. Well, I call it a hairpin, I don't know what you call it, but so one long bit, one short bit, lay it on the stem of foliage. With the longer bit, you're just twisting it round. I'll show you again. You know, and if you're able to sell your stuff and people love it, then who really gives a hoot? Whether technically it's right or not. I mean, there's always two sides to every argument, but long, short, hairpin, wrap round. It would be different if your work fell apart and it wasn't quite up to standard. That's another matter altogether. So I think I might go for one more piece of mimosa, stripping off the lower bits, you don't want those. Rose wire. So hairpin, long bit I'm just going to twist around, and then tape. So holding it with my left hand and twisting, there we go. One more. I remember some of the first weddings we did, my parents came and helped. I remember teaching my dad how to make a corsage, it was genius. And he's really methodical, so he needed to know exactly what he was doing. Right, so traditionally, like I said, you would do ivy leaves. I'm going to be slightly different and use some of these eucalyptus leaves. So for an ivy leaf, you would use a rose wire, and you would just, so the main seam going down the leaf, so poke in and get out the other side. Right, you can kind of see it's a bit broken, but I've gone through the main seam just to give you an idea. Okay, so then I'm just going to twist it together like that and just wrap the longer piece round. And you can only really see that tiny little touch of wire, so that's okay. I'll try one more. It's difficult to get it in and out the other side. There we go. So I'm probably just going to do 3 of these, I think. So round. One more. And gauges of wire is something that I really struggle with because I'm used to going into the market. Oh, that one's gone. Let's try another one. I'm used to going into the market at sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning and sleepily looking at a load of wires and going, yeah, I think it's that one. I should learn gauges, but there we go, 3. I think ideally, if you can have a collection of one thicker wire, one finer one, green one, and the silver wires, you could pretty much do most things, I think. But that's probably not the best tactic. So just gonna wire and tape these. Sorry, tape these leaves. And then lastly, going to use a bit of this buried uke. Just strip the leaves off. I just want the berries. So I'm going to do a hairpin again, like so, lay it on and wrap the longer bit around. Maybe I'll do another one. So I think corsages are lovely to play with, experiment with different types of foliage, see what you like the look of, see what holds up. I think that's probably more the important factor. So I'll just tape those, holding with my left, twisting with my right, tape this one. Right, and that should be enough stuff for me to play with. Maybe just do one more ranunculus so we can have 3. Ladies are always worried about sort of weight of things. You know, is it going to weigh heavily on my suit or my jacket or whatever I'm wearing? I don't want that, do I? I want that one. So they should, I think corsages should be delicate, fairly delicate. They're less bulky in a way than buttonholes. Want to be more feminine. And a lot of people, when you have a couple come to a meeting, they don't even know what a corsage is. You know, who gets the corsage, who gets buttonholes, all of that kind of stuff. So you get to educate them. Right. So traditionally, you would use 3 ivy leaves. You use 1 at the top and 2 at the sides, and then you would start laying on your flowers. You're going to hold the whole kit and caboodle in your left hand, which will feel awkward, I promise. But it means if you hold it sort of fairly lightly, then you can move stuff around. So I kind of want, this is going to go like upside down there. So I want it to sort of be at the slightly pointy thing at the here, and then to sort of build up slightly here, and then finish off with a bit of fluff at the top, if that's a technical word. So I'm going to use this Lisianthus bud, poke it in. I am holding it quite tightly. Okay. That's quite nice. And then I find that if you lay stuff, so if we just did 1, 2, and then 3 here, it would just be a bit bulky, so it's nice to split stuff up with foliage. Give it some space. That's nice. And because you've put really thick wires up the ranunculus's stem, you can bend. So you can angle these flowers, which is really nice. It's all the tricks of the trade. So okay. And again, because I've wired that eucalyptus leaf, I get to manipulate it like that, which is pretty nifty. Right, see if this will, that's nice. Right, I'll space it out with this mimosa. Right, so I've kind of got, my hands are shaking, don't worry. Got the shape of it. I need something as the return end, because again, you should hide your mechanics this end, and normally you would use an ivy leaf and then you sort of bend it round so you can't see. But I think if I just wire and tape another piece of eucalyptus, then I can just cover the mechanics that side and then it'll sit. It might be another 2 leaves, I don't know, but the shape of that is quite nice. It's quite delicate. It's bright colours, but you know, if that's the colours of the wedding, then that's great. So it will feel, my hands are quite stiff, they're holding everything in place, but you can see I've got it all clasped in between my fingers. So hold it with your finger here and then just start taping. And you want to get everything in. So things will move, things have moved. This has gone round to the back, so just move it back round. There we go. That's all right. And that's, I mean, that is quite a forward thinking corsage. It's not traditional. So I'm just going to chop all of this end off. Hear my father's voice going, why didn't you use wire cutters? Okay, so I'm just going to use a bit. So I'm just going to see if I can put the wire in further up to the top of the leaf so I can get more of a bend on it. There we go. And look at that. It's a thing of genius. Tape. And then to soften the kind of angular nature of the eucalyptus, I will do a shorter bit of this mimosa. So a hairpin, again, longer bit, just wrap it around. And then tape. I used to have a tutor at college. He would make you, where's that bit of tape gone? Oh. It would make you use every single piece of tape right up until the end. Like, that's 50p there. Then you suddenly realise as a business owner, she's probably right. Right, so you can see, as I add that piece, it's sort of already softening this side of the corsage. It's kind of, it's doing its job. I'm going to show you again, so without and then with. So it's hiding that return end. And then this leaf. And there you have it. I'm going to tape it again. So just gathering it all up in my fingers, round. I'm just going to chop it off a bit shorter. Right, you just want my butchering attempt at the end. I think there's too many wires. I'm just going to retape around the bottom and just cover up. So just kind of stretch it over the bottom a couple of times. I'll show you again. Because these are quite sharp ends, so you don't want people to There you go. And there we have it. One corsage. Kind of pretty. Now, the one thing that is definitely a fashion is that none of that would be wired and taped, and then you just put a piece of ribbon round with a little bow, and that the pin then goes in, and away you go. I tend to tape everything. I don't know why it's an OCD in my head of they'll flop if they don't. And this is just my way of doing it, and I think, you know, that's okay. So if you want to hide, you know, that green tape, you can do many things. You know, use raffia. I've just got some here, or you can use like string, just the brown twine. That's quite nice. I do that a lot. And all I would do is get a glue gun and just glue it at the top, and then you just start twisting. And just neatly round like that. And it's just pulling it tight so that it stays where you want it to stay. Right, this is going to come off because obviously I haven't glued it, but you get the effect that it sort of almost changes the look altogether. It suddenly becomes a bit more rustic, a bit more relaxed. So that's a possibility. But the one thing I haven't shown you is putting a magnet on. But do think about, you know, that's a suggestion, and also account for cost when you're talking to your brides and they say, I want twine on things. If you've got, I don't know, 10, 15 buttonholes and 5 corsages to put twine on, that's going to take time. So add some money on for that. Don't just go, oh yeah, it's no problem, like I used to. Okay, magnets. For ladies, they're just, we wear more delicate clothes. We've not just got a normal suit on. So with a magnet, you get 2 pieces, a fatter and a thinner. All you do is attach the fat bit at the top. It'll hold on, obviously, and tape it on. Tape it around. There you go. And you can kind of see it's attached. And then that thin bit is the backing. So you pop that on. So the lady, all they need to do, this is so not going to work. It might do. There you go. Look at that. It's a thing of beauty. And it holds.